ready, set, embrace, overcoming the challenges in generative AI adoption. And who I have with me is Maritza Johnson, who is a founding director of the Center for Civil Digital Society at the University of San Diego. She's working to establish a new type of relationship with data that epitomizes legibility, accountability, and resilience. Before joining USD, Maritza was a user experience researcher at Google Research and a technical privacy manager at Facebook's public policy team. And her 2011 paper, The Failure of Online Social Network Privacy Settings, won the Future of Privacy Forum's Privacy Papers for Policymakers Award. Maritza received an MS and a PhD degrees in computer science from Columbia University and a BA degree from University of Santiago. So, hi Maritza, thanks for joining us. We also have Otavio with us. Otavio Freire is a seasoned entrepreneur, executive, and academic with rich research and development, product development, and business development portfolio within the cybersecurity, risk-based systems, and AI spaces. His entrepreneurial feats include creating and growing a pioneering cloud and AI-based ventures. Beyond his entrepreneurial pursuits, he brings his expertise to the University of Virginia, teaching at the Darden Business School and the School of Engineering. He also serves as an advisor to European External Action Service, the EU's diplomatic service. Beyond that, Otavio holds a civil engineering degree, a master's in systems engineering, and an MBA from Darden Business School. These credentials underpin his ability to bridge the technical and business worlds together, as we have found out working together. He has presented to the European Commission on AI regulation matters and contributed insights to The Guardian, The Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, and Dark Reading. With a career spanning over 20 years, Otavio's leadership has influenced business across multiple geographies and sectors. So nice to have you, Otavio. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Michael.
And then, finally myself. So my name is Michael. I'm a senior client partner here at Neoteric, and I help businesses harness the power of generative AI by delivering custom-made AI solutions. And I'm the host here today. So, the background for hopefully a really good conversation where, for our Tech Talk webinar, where we invite top industry experts to talk about opportunities and challenges of AI adoption. So, like I say, thanks for joining us, guys. In terms of really making a start here and kind of moving things forward. So I think really the first thing I wanted to dwell into is how generative AI is changing the world. So one of the things I came across in my readings was Kai-Fu Lee, one of the leading AI experts, who said that artificial intelligence could be the most transformative technology in the history of mankind. And he almost sees it as this AI 2.0 era, as he called it. He sees it as 10 times larger than that of the mobile internet, generating a new wave of AI-first applications and business models. Do you guys agree with that? What's your vision of the future in that this AI revolution brings? And what do you guys think it means to the businesses? So I think, that's probably the first question to start. So I don't know which one of you guys wants to go first. Maybe Otavio. I see you smiling.
Yeah, no, look, there's been a lot of hype around it. Just yesterday, Mark Benioff, which I think, is a name we all know in tech, said that generative AI is not only opportunity for a lifetime, but in tech, and that we're starting a tech super cycle. It might be the tech opportunity of many lives, that it is going to be that transformative, and it's being that transformative. I think it impacts everybody, right? And certainly impacts businesses and governments as well, as they have to think through how transformational it is.
Fair enough. And what about you, Maritza? What's your thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm. I feel like it is most certainly a very exciting time, a time where generative AI is hitting the scene in terms of being a tool that could be used to enhance almost everything that we're doing. It could be used to automate a lot of what we do. And in terms of things that are exciting when it comes to being able to scale. It's just incredible. So you heard from my bio that the work that I'm most interested in tends to be around people and their data. And a lot of the conversations that I've had over the past 10 years have really been hard to have because I feel like people don't have a way to see and feel and get a visceral, develop a visceral understanding of the vast amounts of data that we sort of that's been collected in the world, that exists, that's being rendered, that's could be used. And I feel like generative AI is, I'll guess, one of many tools that is going to really drive the point home what it's meant for the past. So it is, it's 2023. So let's say most of us started carrying around a smartphone in, to be generous, I don't know, 2011, 2012. I don't know. Around then it was, ubiquitous sensors, connectivity, free storage in a way that, wasn't available when I was just getting started in computing. And I feel like generative AI and other types of AI will be the technology that drives home what it'll make meaning out of that past decade. And what that means, I'm not totally sure, but I feel like there are so many new conversations to be had that now's the time to, I think, crack open the arena and let more than builders participate. That's the thing I'm excited about. I feel like it's a chance to kind of like hit that democratization of technology that we often talk about that I don't think ever really hit.
Yeah, no, I think it's almost. I think to your point, Maritza, it's almost a continuation of what the mobile internet did, because in terms of democratization and kind of bringing technology worldwide to as many people as possible, people who might have not had a sort of a fixed internet connection. So on what mobile internet did there, I think, yeah, generative AI is sort of opening up new avenues where people who perhaps cannot write code all of a sudden can start writing applications and things like that. So yeah, definitely I would echo what you said there. I think one more thing to bring up for everyone who's watching us here as well, we do have a Q&A mode, which we're going to turn on in a second. There it is. So if you guys have any questions you want to ask, feel free to pop them over and we'll try and get those answered as we go along. So sort of moving on, I think the next little piece we wanted to address is, who is this technology for? Who can it really benefit from it? So we see a new wave of generative AI powered products sort of entering the market with huge VC funding. It seems as though this is the only part of the industry that's not affected at all at the moment, with VCs sort of throwing money at those businesses. And on the other hand, I think it's even more interesting that there's a large established organizations that incorporate generative AI into their processes. Would you say generative AI is a good move for a specific type of business, specific size of business, or maybe aspects such as size or industry don't really matter, but rather the needs of a given company and the ideas of use cases? What do you guys think?
Well,
Otavio?
Yeah, let me go first. I think that it's really for everyone. I have not come across yet an industry or a business that you can't figure out a use case for. Maybe there is. I haven't come across one. It seems that education, manufacturing, media, telecom. I just really can't find one that it isn't. And look, if you have a product, it doesn't have to be a tech product. The stats are out there that generative AI can make it 10x better, right? And the reality also is that corporations are, every time they have to hire a person, the first question they ask is, well, do we need to make this hire, or can we power somebody with AI? And this is also happening, right? So it is affecting the cost structure of corporations, and it is affecting the revenue of corporations, which ultimately, it's being thought through every decision. And yeah, look, so I do think it's for everyone. And to your point about the VCs, I'd even make a stronger point. VCs, just to show how generative AI is transformative, if you had an AI business, it's been written off. Like they don't want to put more funding in the previous version of AI. So it's not just, this is an enhancement of AI. It's a very specific investment that they are looking for the future. And there's a lot of similarities to the internet era.
And Maritza, what's your take? Maritza, what's your take on it?
Mm-hmm. So I like to think of what we've seen so far as a very powerful proof of concept in terms of showing almost like proof by existence that generative AI is possible, and that that we can use technology to make meaning of a huge amount of data, and then interactively prompt this tool to do things that look new to us or things that inspire new thoughts from people. And so if I think about putting it in its proper place, like this is a tool that people are going to be using. These conversations about like the singularity and like AI taking over, I think are total nonsense and not really worth our time. Instead, I think if we think hard, I'm a user experience researcher by training. Computer scientist by training, turned user experience person by experience. And I always, when I'm talking about security, privacy, technology, always remind people these are things that are designed and built by people to be used by people to advance conversations you have with other people. If we're just doing like computer stuff and computer type computer, like what are you even talking about? So if we think of generative AI as a tool that is used for people to do their jobs, and the very, look at it as the very powerful communication tool that it is, like it's interesting and relevant to all knowledge work these days. Like people do interesting things by way of conversation. So if we have a tool that can change the way we converse with people, like it could be anything. I think it's very exciting. But then at the same time, like the reason why I started my response to say it's a proof of concept, it's proof of existence. I feel like what the next several years are going to be is figuring out how do we take, like now that we know what's possible, how do we create an environment where we are building something useful that we understand, that can actually help people, as opposed to, I think, continuing on the current trajectory that we're on, which could be full of risk and uncertainty, where it feels like a black box. It doesn't feel like anybody really understands what went in and what might come out. Like we're not sure what to do with it yet. So I think the structuring of that conversation is what's interesting to me right now. I feel like if we don't get that right, that's what would prevent us from this wonderful future. I kind of have put out a little bit of it being this powerful tool that anybody could use.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think I definitely second what you said in terms of trying to really harness this tool is the key here, and making sure we do it. But it's, I think what's particularly exciting about this technology compared to some other sort of tech revolutions that we had within the industry is even the clients that come to us, we see a much wider variety than we have ever seen in terms of, on one end, we have the more enterprise clients joining, coming to us and saying, hey, can we do, a workshop? Can we sort of figure out how we can utilize this? We don't want to be left behind. Our sort of C-line, our board members want this technology, and heads of technology have to figure out how to sort of employ it. But on the other hand, we have small businesses who have, sort of 4 or 5 sort of employees. And all of a sudden, I think this whole generative AI revolution opens up the conversation around, can we automate our processes? Do we have to be a big guy do we need massive data sets to be able to employ AI? Can we automate our customer service, things like that? So no, definitely I think that's the sort of hitting the nail on the head in terms of what makes generative AI so exciting. It's just how universal it is. But I think as you touched on it as well, there's a lot of challenges with it that kind of come with this new technology, this new shiny thing that I think we have to address. So what are the main challenges, do you think, that companies face when they decide to implement generative AI? So, I mean, if we assume for a second I'm a chief innovation officer of a large media company, could you sort of briefly name a few challenges that you think I should be prepared for?
Michael, so at Kaju AI, we've implemented a platform, a generative AI platform to make sense and create excellence in digital conversations. So we've got the scars of customers, such as this, the scenario that you described of a chief media officer a chief innovation officer of a media company, and you start to see a pattern, right? Like the reasons why they ask, like, hey, I love to your product, but here are my concerns. So you see a pattern repeating, right? And the pattern tends to be around trust. It tends to be around data security. It tends to be around intellectual property. A large media company certainly will be about scale, right? Cost. Also, as you implement, let's say, OpenAI as your LLM, um, um, but also what technology choices do I make, right? It's a fast evolving space, and no one wants to tie their future to the wrong horse. I think everyone recognizes that it's a very fast changing landscape. So that, like, the questions tend to focus around this area, right? And but I think they all have a solution. They're all solvable to get, to a point where you can have a generative AI impact your business.
And what about thoughts from your end, Maritza? What do you think?
Mm-hmm. So some of the things that I think about in terms of challenges, my work has typically been in human-centered security and privacy. I'll occasionally, and to be very specific, like I'm really interested in how consumers understand what is their data, how is their data being used when they're making decisions like, should I put this Apple HomePod in my kitchen so I can listen to music? Like, what sorts of decisions are people making when they're making that purchasing decision? What are their questions? What interfaces are they getting? What can they do? So that's like where I'm coming from. And then from like a security point of view, for a consumer, usually they're wondering simple things like, is it safe for me to be using online banking? Is it safe for me to be using, this or that? And I feel like that perspective doesn't necessarily match up well with the way that builders and technologists tend to design and build the their products. So I'm interested in how do we bridge that chasm. By having worked in privacy for as long as I have, and this is got my start in looking at Facebook privacy settings, as you heard in my bio, then thinking about people installing mobile apps on their iPhone or Android, maybe really puzzling over, do I give full location access to this application? What does that mean? And then today, now we have voice assistants, we have many other things, decisions that people are making that are very relevant to their lives. Do I install this Life 360 app that will track my children? On the one hand, I have safety. I want to know where my kid is. On the other hand, would I install it for safety if I knew that this company was selling that data to advertisers? There are a lot of embedded decisions that people are making as part of their day-to-day now. And one thing that I feel is a huge challenge is that AI, so let's see here, maybe like 4 years ago, I started to get requests when I was doing speaking things to be optimistic about the future of privacy and AI, because isn't AI so cool that it papers over all of these privacy concerns and questions that I just kind of ran through and mentioned. And my answer to that is no. I think that our work in privacy will only become harder and more interesting as end users are starting to see the applications of the data that's been collected over 10 years. People today have many more questions and concerns based off of what they're seeing because they're hitting a little bit of an uncanny valley. All of a sudden, generative AI and various other, machine learning and predictive technologies are working better than they were in the past. So people are coming up on things that feel too uncanny to be a mere coincidence, and they want answers. I'm sure everybody has heard some variant of the situation of like, hey, I was only, in my house talking with my spouse about whether or not we should get this new blender. And gosh, now I can't figure out, why am I seeing ads everywhere for this blender? Sometimes there's a simple answer. Sometimes it's, okay, well, while you were talking about it, your spouse was searching for it. Or, well, you actually, just because it's on your mind, availability bias, we're all human. Now you're noticing these things when you might not have before. But to me, the problem is you cannot, as a consumer, get a clear answer to why you're seeing that ad. Can you get a clear answer to, is this social media app using my microphone to listen to me having that conversation, and is it getting pulled in? And to me, that is a critical part of, that's a situation that will continue to come up. We'll only see more AI-based, things happening, these uncanny things I'm describing, and people are going to wonder how and why. And the technology today isn't built in such a way that we can answer those questions. So regulators can't get answers. Companies don't want these questions. They can't really answer them. If you remember, OpenAI came out with ChatGPT, then weeks later we see Google come out with Bard, then we see a headline that says, hey, enterprising journalists looked in and saw that there's a line in Bard's privacy policy that your Gmail messages are being used. They raised the question to Google's public policy team. Google's very quick to say, that was a typo. Of course we don't use your email messages. What the hell does that even mean at this point, right? We've seen so many privacy missteps that is that trustworthy? No, none of that's trustworthy. So you're wondering how did this happen? Who do I believe? Who can get real answers to these relatively simple questions? To me, those are everything about what I just described. Those are the sorts of challenges we're going to have going forward. And I just described, depending on the person, maybe you feel like that's not that big of a deal. The safety of my kid, it outweighs whether or not some advertiser's buying my kid's location trace. Fine, that's your decision. Okay, Gmail's using my emails to train their model. Yeah, that's fine. It's just my email. Totally up to you. The thing is, we're not in a position to have those decisions laid out for us and have our preferences actually respected. So I'm not sure how we're going to overcome that. And then what I would say, it's those are consumer applications. So then what happens when we're looking at models in medicine, applications of these different technologies, sort of as tools we've been talking about, but in a situation where you don't know that it's being used? What do you do? And so I feel this whole question of transparency, legibility, being able to understand when things go wrong, being able to disentangle and kind of troubleshoot what's happened. I feel today we're not in a situation where we understand the services and technologies in such a way that we can formulate our questions, let alone get good answers. And I think that's a problem throughout. It's a problem for I was about to say it's a problem for everybody beyond who is, deep in the weeds building the things, but it's a problem for them too. It's for all of us.
For sure. No, I think that's the thing you touched on, Maritza. It's definitely even more important with the democratization that you mentioned of technology and the far and beyond use. It's sort of not for a very selected in the know group. It's for everyone. So I think that's the privacy side of it needs to be very transparent in order to really make sure that everyone can understand it and everyone can understand what's happening with the data. I think the challenge here is we're dealing with massive complex tools which we're trying to explain to everyone, which is the challenge, I guess, for those companies as well. So I think both of you guys touched on a very interesting point that I wanted to sort of go a bit deeper into. So trust, because I think that kind of came across from both your answers here. So one of the sort of points I think I wanted to mention here is that Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, was testifying in front of Congress. I think we all seen it recently. So he was calling for the US government to regulate artificial intelligence, and he was very much for it, which is saying something from a CEO of a company like OpenAI. And he agreed that large scale manipulation and deception using AI tools, which is something I think Maritza touched on, are among the technology's biggest potential flaws. So can we trust generative AI, or how do we get sort of, how do we trust generative AI, I guess?
Yeah. Look, if you put what Maritza just said and what Sam Altman is saying, they actually go hand in hand. It's actually a very smart business decision. People get confused, Why would a CEO ask for regulation? But think about it for a moment, the complexity of the challenges that Maritza just outlined, right? So now here's a CEO stepping in. You all will never trust me, right? Out of the gate, we've made so many mistakes. Like, it's going to be hard, right? They recognize this. So it's clever what he's saying. Okay.
Well, Otavio dropped up somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Please come back, Otavio.
Yeah.
Just as he was getting into it. But yeah, no, I think definitely the point that Otavio made about, tech CEOs not being the most trustworthy people, all the Congress hearings of the boss of TikTok, the boss of Facebook, yeah, they're not really sort of helping matters in some instances as well. So are we going to regain Otavio here for in a sec?
So how about while we wait for him, I'll add
Okay.
to that previous response that I just gave. I would say that why I'm here today and speaking with this audience is to say, I feel that there's an opportunity for potential customers who are, looking to integrate these services, looking to buy these products. Go into these sales meetings with questions like the ones that I just asked. I think that with pressure from customers asking questions, companies will have to do better. And whether that's coming directly from your customers and you're passing them on into your buying conversations, the sales conversations, or if you're part of your own sales team and you're wondering when you get these questions, how should we respond? I would say that when questions are raised, the worst thing you could do is not have an answer. Like when you're caught flat-footed and you haven't thought about these things, that's when I think you get into very predictably tough situations. So one of the things I've been working on lately is with the Center for Financial Inclusion, we're working on a playbook for how to design, and this is just for any financial services that use a big data component. Like, how are you answering these questions? And it's about like, how do you get prepared? So I'll leave that there. And Otavio, I see you're back. Can you hear us?
Yeah. Sorry.
Great.
But there seems to be some sort of glitch.
The tech CEOs are after us. They're trying to take over our stream.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to our answer. Otavio.
And I was saying that I'm actually made a good, so go for it. So yeah, so I think ultimately regulation is a good thing, and it'll increase trust and share.
No, fair enough. So I think all very valid points, and I think this trust element, like what Maritza said, is super key here in terms of progressing with this technology and making sure that we sort of progress from here. And I think from the perspective of sort of again going back to my chief innovation officer. Do you think that analysis and sort of summaries or recommendations provided by generative AI algorithms can be trusted? Are we at that stage yet, or are they something we should take with a pinch of salt and be very careful about?
So look, I've been working with AI for over 10 years, right? And people get confused, like how AI works. Look, we're seeing something that's, if you're taking a step back, it's been built since the 60s, right? So the old AI, the dirty little secret is if you built a really good AI system and you tagged a lot of data and spent a lot of fortune on everything, it was like 65% accurate. And that was good, right? So now we have the system that is probably 90+% accurate. And then people find that 2 to 3%, like, look at this. But in the long arc of AI development, it is really good. Because let me tell you what struggling with trying to build your own machine learning models was and how costly. And you had to retrain the data, right? So like even from an operational standpoint, it was hard to like make a business out of it and scale it. So, okay, all right. Well, some people find it can give bad answers, and certainly there's room for improvement. But also, I want to put in perspective, kind of like what it means from a scientific perspective to go to the level of accuracy that it has now, that it continues to wow a lot of people. So
No, for sure. And I think definitely an interesting point you made, Otavio, about finding the little bit when it's wrong as well. I know I had quite an interesting conversation when I first spoke with Jim, who I know you work with, where Jim said, look, even as humans, you have sort of domain knowledge in a certain part of it, or in a certain industry. You don't know every single industry off by heart. So the fact that this solution does so well to get us answers from various industries is still quite impressive, and it's still something that we should be pretty impressed with. And the fact we can then fine tune it to get better and better, and sort of use it as a way to get around the whole issue of hallucinations and so on is definitely the way to go, I think, as well. So moving on, I think another interesting issue to sort of cover here would be that of data security. So I think that's kind of, again, related to trust, and I think very much Maritza's topic here in terms of security side of things. And I know there's a lot of concerns of people who are implementing generative AI sort of solutions. Is that is that one of data security? So we hear that all the time when we get clients coming to us, and sort of that's one of the main questions that's coming there. So even in January this year, we heard Amazon warning employees not to share confidential information with sort of ChatGPT after seeing what they called closely matched existing material from sort of inside the company in some of the answers provided by ChatGPT. So that said, can we trust the data we share with the AI model is safe? And how do we protect sort of sensitive data? Is there ways to use generative AI and keep your data privacy? I think, Otavio, you're on mute. It wouldn't be an online meeting.
I would say yes. I've seen a lot of progress, right, since 3.5 Turbo. They offered now data silos. They're and they've made it a clear push to not use your data to train the models. They've stated as such as their terms of service. And there's been a lot of, since the Microsoft acquisition, there's been a big infrastructure push to create mechanisms to protect the enterprise's data silo, right? So, and this is reacting to enterprise purchases. They can't have the situation where their private data is being used to train public models, or shared with other companies. So companies that are building products build specific pipelines for each individual customer that creates full isolation of the data throughout the whole process, and then work with OpenAI to create isolation in the Microsoft infrastructure as well, right? But this is all very recent. It was what you just described was the case, but 3.5 Turbo, which was an eternity ago, April, it like completely changed, right? It's like, because they're reacting very quickly to what enterprises, their business model is based on building customers in the enterprise that use these LLMs. So, they're addressing the data security, and they've made incredible progress. But as you build your product, you also need to understand how to create that data isolation, avoid sharing of data with, if you have a many customer model, and so on. And there's even the emergence now of open source LLMs that you can put in private hardware and run in your private cloud. So you can match the data security, which you couldn't, even as early as the beginning of this year. So I think that the part of data security, there's a lot of work that will be done, but it's moving very fast. Again, and using the internet analogy, like we're still living in a world of as Maritza pointed out, of like data security, 30 years on in the internet. So we have to be patient. These things will get resolved. It's making fast strides, but I don't think there's an endpoint, right? It's like, okay, well, it's June, we figured it all out. Like, this was going to go on for, things will evolve, and new risks will emerge that will also be solved. And, we need to keep our head above water. That's really kind of, I think, what will happen, is already happening.
Yeah, no, and I think just to sort of add to it from our side, I think, and Otavio really hit the nail on the head in terms of, the Microsoft acquisition and how much things have moved on since then. So the fact you can use GPT in conjunction with Azure, which I think is interesting definitely for a lot of our enterprise customers, because that's what a lot of enterprises use for their sort of network. And the fact that you can access GPT from sort of GPT-3 onwards through Azure OpenAI service, which operates on the sort of Azure global infrastructure. And the fact you can sort of provide user-based roles, role-based access controls, and sort of private network connectivity, etc., that really kind of helped push that side forward. And the fact, then all your data is essentially stored with, Azure storage and is encrypted like the rest of sort of, your data that's stored by Microsoft Microsoft managed keys. So I think, definitely the Microsoft acquisition sort of moved on the like you say, the security game miles on. So it's interesting to see, like you say, when it goes. But yes, and Maritza, what's your sort of take on this here?
Yeah. So my starting point would be, I feel there's a distinction between can it be done and is it being done? And for sure, we've seen significant advances in how we handle security and how we handle, how we handle deploying what we know about how to virtualize various services, so we can make stronger guarantees about where is the data, how's it being used, is it being commingled, having stronger security guarantees and also privacy guarantees about where things are going. We've seen great advances in privacy enhancing technologies. I feel like there's, as a technologist, it can sometimes be hard to distinguish between being able to do something versus being able to consistently deploy it effectively all the time to meet somebody's, requirements. And the thing that I would caution for teams that are thinking about, embracing and deploying some of this technology is, I would say, don't assume that just because it is possible, that it is actually happening. And I'm constantly seeing headlines that remind us that just because something could be done doesn't mean that it is being done. Where, for example, like Amazon just got hit with a big fine from the FTC because they said they were deleting voice recordings off of Alexa when parents requested it for children's data, and they weren't. So, can we effectively delete data? Yes, of course. Is it simple? No. Can we count on the big companies to do it effectively? Time and time again, we learn apparently not. So I feel like it will require constant vigilance to be sure that your standards are being met. And I guess the good news is that there's a lot of room for innovation here. And actually, what I would love to see would be like, given how exciting the time is right now for what might be coming with the AI, I feel like now's the time where we should, continue to build up our other practices to match. So let's invest more in security. Let's invest more in privacy. As Otavio said, like the internet is, let's say around like mid 90s, early 2000s is when it became, wide, deployed in a wide manner. Still today, like some of the most, some of the easiest security attacks are launch a phishing attack. Most of the best defenses can't hold up to that unless you have everything implemented just right. So I don't know. I feel like we're seeing a lot of like same but different in terms of the problems that are coming up. And I think staying away from kind of all or nothing mindsets about it is important, while also keeping your wits about you, right? Like you need to know going in what you're looking for and ask the questions to be sure you're getting what you think you're buying. It's a little bit tough, but I think it's the cost we're going to have to pay if we want to embrace these new technologies.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a point you touched on there, Maritza, is part of, I think there's a very big room in some of the more enterprise settings for roles like yours, for example, a privacy expert, someone who can, like you say, make sure that the things that can be done are being done to sort of protect this data. So I think that really adds to making sure we sort of move forward with this technology in a very sensible manner, and we don't sort of do things where we might put users' data at risk or something like that. But definitely some really good points there. So thanks for that. In terms of sort of moving on to the next bit I wanted to discuss, which is IP rights. So, we're creating, we're generating content here. Who owns it, right? So in the United States, copyright does not cover works produced by AI as they lack a human creator. On the other hand, the rights for AI-generated content are usually well described in the terms of use of any particular model that you choose to use to generate it. But how can we be sure that the content generated by AI is not plagiarism? So I've read about some cases where, especially around Mid-Journey and Stable Diffusion and sort of the more image processing AI models, where there was lawsuits from the art community claiming that those art tools violate the copyright law by sort of scraping artists' work from the internet without their consent and then sort of generating based on that. So how do you think we can avoid that? And how can we avoid trouble for us? And how to sort of avoid IP infringements in case of both text and visual content? So over to you guys.
Yeah, look, it's a gray area, certainly evolving, right? As you mentioned, there's cases taking place that are defining the scope, how the judicial system sees these things. Again, using the analogy of internet that Maritza brought up, like even those things are not solved for the internet 30 years on, right? So this is also, going to be an ongoing discussion. But there's a few things that could avoid this. I think, first of all, the LLMs need to train on public domain only. Like if your data is for sure off public domain, then you wouldn't have the problem. I think what you can do as you build your product is diversify that training data, right? So let me explain what that means. So the LLMs, the output can be modified and should be modified as you build your use cases. So as you expand the training data set, the likelihood that it's not transformative art, which is covered by copyrights, goes down incredibly, right? And the more you diversify this, more this becomes true. So there's, at the implementation level, you can minimize your risk as you diversify the training data set. And there was actually a case about transformative law that was just happened in the courts. So derivative products are protected, but you have to prove that. But I think, look, this is a gray area. I think it's evolving quickly. Certainly, OpenAI, for example, has made statements, right? So the output from your prompt design is yours, which is great because, first of all, corporations were worried that it belonged to OpenAI, and that would have been a problem unto itself. So they've clarified from that perspective, right? So now we're going back deeper in the stack. So are they generating something that is potentially an IP rights infringement? And that's where you, as you build your product, can do something about that to minimize the risk as well. And actually diversifying the training data set from LLMs will happen naturally, right? Most business implementations, you have some data that you're going to use, and you're going to use the LLM as a reasoning engine. So that'll naturally happen. So the likelihood also goes down. So my recommendation is, as the laws change, see how you can, what you can do to make sure that the output is more protected would be my advice.
Yeah, and I think this is also like I think you mentioned previously, Otavio. That's where the sort of legislation might come to rescue and might sort of calm the nerves down of some of the key players. But it's definitely a space. I think the legislative side of it will be a very interesting side to watch, together with sort of, auditing of the models and kind of, looking out for bias. And even now at conferences, I attended a AI-based conference last week, and some of the main topics were around sort of how do we audit the model, how do we make sure there's no sort of bias, how do we sort of make sure it stands up the test of all those legislations coming. So there's already companies out there trying to find the answer and sort of coming up with various sort of audit tools and things like that, where you can actually audit the model and kind of that side of this generative space growing. So, and Maritza, what's your take on it?
Mhm. Yeah, so I'm not a lawyer by training and haven't really dug into much about copyright law and also the sale of, the works. When I think about it, the way that I would approach it would be to first think, okay, how are we thinking about what's fair use in terms of the inputs? And then how are we thinking about the outputs? And what are the likely use cases for how the outputs will be used? I think that there's also an additional factor to think through about, are we looking at sort of a visual creative endeavor, like an artwork, or are we thinking about something like music? Are we thinking about writing? From my own perspective, I've spent the most time thinking about the written part of it and interacting with, like ChatGPT as a tool. And, my near-term thinking on it is, the outputs of, well, okay, so like I said, you'd break it down like inputs versus outputs. For inputs, I mean, we have existing copyright laws that are perhaps not being enforced around, and I don't know all the inputs for ChatGPT, but a lot of stuff that's on the internet is also posted with a copyright or a Creative Commons or some other use policy. So whether or not those are being respected, I don't know. From their track record, I'm going to guess that something like Creative Commons is not being respected. And then, we have big conversations that have already taken place around the legality and the ethics of scraping data, doing web scraping. I'll kind of just leave that there. Then if I'm thinking about, copyright in terms of the outputs, right now we're seeing that, the direct outputs of the tool aren't usually ready for, direct consumption. Like it requires editing, right? Like you're having a human do like craft a prompt and then, look at the output, figure they're going to edit it before publishing it probably. And like I said, I don't really know a ton about existing copyright laws. So then whether or not you want to take that and, claim that it's now your original work. I feel like there are probably people better informed than I am to have that conversation. But I mean, I feel like it what I would caution against is treating this as so new that we don't know what we're doing, that we have no sort of kind of past experience that could inform how we're going to go forward. I think right now, the thing that concerns me about conversations about AI is that we're treating it as though like AI is this sort of other technology that requires all new thinking and we have to throw out the old, where really I feel like the way I've been framing my responses is this is a tool that is sort of enhancing and fortifying what you're already doing. So then whatever laws are applying in, the domain that you're currently working in, they should still apply. Like we're not out there totally out of our skis with in this whole new world where, we don't know what we're doing. So I feel like I guess I always want to kind of bring in a bit of like, use your brain and rely on your past experience. Like, let's not pretend like, oh, but it's AI, who knows, anything goes. Like, that's, I feel that puts us in a disingenuous space. So like, let's not do that.
For sure. And I think, you really hit the point there in terms of, let's use some existing frameworks and existing approaches to this new technology. And I think that should then definitely help us sort of keep things on the same side. And the more, sort of like Otavio said, the more data we sort of feed into it and so on, and less of a chance of someone coming after us for a copyright claim we have. So it's all about using it sensibly for sure. So I think, yeah.
But consider this. Consider this. This is, for 10 years, I founded an AI cybersecurity company, right? So I was working with AI, and we realized also we had to remove bias, right? So we spent our meager dollars trying to make the models better, right? So did the next AI company. So did the next AI company. So the next AI company, right? So there was no scale. Everybody was trying to remove. Everybody is still, that hasn't moved to generative AI, trying to spend their product dollars removing bias, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here comes OpenAI and says, you know what? We're going to build this centrally, and we're going to remove for everybody, right? So you're a few million, and you're a few million, and you're a few million. Forget that. This company loses $500 million in 1 year. That's like 200 people.
Mm-hmm.
So where did $500 million go, right? You know where it went? Removing bias and tagging data in various countries around the world. So they took the hit where everybody was trying to get there. Nobody individually had the scale. All the other AI companies together didn't have the scale, right? So that's the big, brilliant move here that they did. And then they said, you know what? I'm going to make this an API. So think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So they created a scale that nobody could achieve individually to remove biases. Is it done? No. But there's been, this enormous amount of effort and money, like a small company that outsourced massive amount of people around the world to go remove bias. Now, it's hard to remove bias when done with people who have bias, right? You can only make, as Maritza said, it's people to people. It's a people business, right? By AI, ultimately. So you can make it better. Is it you remove it? No, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's kind of the evolution as I see this, and that's why, it's hard to go back and try to compete with something that is like has the scale, even in the data tagging that nobody can achieve individually.
Yeah, no, definitely some good points there, and I definitely agree with that. So yeah, I guess sort of another topic, swiftly moving on because I'm also sort of conscious of the time restraints we have here. So another topic I know we wanted to cover is sort of use of tools by LLMs. So of course we have all those large language models out there which are emerging. It feels like every week there's a new one, and with sort of it is transformative technology as we said. And it sort of enables developers to build applications that they previously could not. And using those LLMs in isolation is often insufficient for creating a truly powerful app. So a lot of it comes down to combining them with other sources of computation or knowledge. And this makes me sort of curious about this. I guess you could call it LLM ops landscape. So platforms, frameworks, databases. How do you choose the right tool set to use LLMs effectively, do you think? I know, Otavio, this might be very much more down the road than Maritza's, but yeah. So
we've been working with the Neoteric team, and we're super impressed. The expertise that you guys brought to the table there to help us build our product. Certainly, well, first of all, hire the right people. Number one, because it's an area very complex, which needs specific expertise in generative AI. So that's certainly the first step. So call Michael, step one. But in all sincerity, it's changing very quick, right? So we have to choose your vector database. You should choose your vector database that's appropriate for your use case. You're going to use Pinecone, use Melvis. There's a vector database that's right for you, right? And then how you manage your data pipeline to create that isolation and data silos. Well, you got to try lang chain. Is it perform at the speed you want? Does it perform at the cost you need? All those things, they need to be individual decisions, but a whole new infrastructure has emerged with LLM ops. Are you going to use Mervis because Pinecone is a hosted model? You worry about that, where you don't want to You don't need you need a full managed service. So all these are decisions. They have to be taken individually based what you need to accomplish, and you make the best decision. But it has changed, and that's where expertise comes in. You certainly don't want to be reinventing the wheel and trying to make decisions and learn everything individually as you go, especially in a fast moving technology. By the time you figure it all out, it's changed, right? That's why it's important to have a good partner that can help you kind of move through that. And in terms of the LLMs, they're fastly changing. So who here remembers the Netscape browser? Right? It's common, but everybody used it at one point. This is no different. Like the internet era is upon us again. OpenAI, for all I know, might just be the Netscape. 2 years from now, do you remember OpenAI? Yeah, wasn't it cool? ChatGPT, remember that? We all used it. If anything, it proves that it's more likely to happen than not. Netscape's not around. So when you build your product, you have to abstract your reasoning engine because it will change. The only thing I know for a fact that these things will change. That's the only thing I know. So I can't build it for this reasoning engine or that reasoning engine. Your product. What if OpenAI says, you know what, we've tripled our price? Then what? Is it going to kill your business model?
Correct.
You have to be able to say, here is what I want to accomplish with generative AI. This is where Palm 2 or OpenAI fits in, and I can swap that portion out because I've built a resilient, flexible product architecture relying on the best LLM capabilities out there that give me the ability to do that, right? So that's certainly what we've built at Caju AI, realizing that we want to always have the cutting edge capability, but it's unforeseen at this point, who's ultimately going to be there. And related back to the browser wars, right? Ultimately, Internet Explorer won. Netscape became bloated and crashed all the time. I don't know if you all remember this, and we just stopped using it, right? Could that happen? ChatGPT hallucinates so much, we just stop using it. It could happen. And I don't want that to be a problem for my customers, right? So I want to have that flexibility to swap out as things change. So that would be my advice. Think about all the components, make the best choice tied to your business model. First of all, get the right expertise to do that fast, because if you have a product development life cycle of 2 years, the opportunity is probably gone. But then build it with flexibility. Think of the LLM as your reasoning engine and be able to make the best decisions at that layer as well, because the technology is changing very fast.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, like you say, the pivoting element is being ready to change the model and kind of trying to move the market is really important here, and really kind of brings, I guess it's one of those areas of tech where definitely sort of agile development really helps matters, and where you can sort of, change priorities quickly and kind of pivot from model to model. So thanks for that. Again, being conscious of the time, I have sort of, one last question, I guess. So sort of considering everything we spoke about today, what would your advice be for those considering implementing generative AI in their organizations? So what do you think? Maritza, maybe let's start with you in this instance.
Sure. My advice is to approach it as you would any other technology. It is very exciting. The demos are really cool. Interacting with it, I feel like it can sometimes get easy to be swept away. But, let yourself, be excited, but stay focused on whatever your true goal is. Just stick to the basics, ask the same questions you would have anything. And, I think Otavio gave a really great answer for the previous question of, maintain your abstractions where you can. Don't go, don't get swept away whatever the newest phase is. And we're going to see so many changes. I think, I completely agree. The one thing that is certain is that it's going to evolve and change. Probably, more rapidly than any of us can anticipate. Oh, I think now you're muted.
Yeah, no, it was my turn now. Yeah. And what about you, Otavio? What's your take on this?
Well, things have changed very fast, and some, experience, even from AI is not relevant necessarily in Gen AI. It is, yeah, this whole new category of prompt engineering has emerged, and people are starting to figure that out still. And there's a challenge to move fast. So if it's all about moving fast, because the market is changing very quickly. I saw an education company that lost 70% of revenue because it was a medical subscription information business. The doctor's like, I can get 70% of my answers just using ChatGPT, cancel in 1 month. So should that company seen it coming? Instead of poo-pooing Gen AI, should have they embraced it, right? And to reduce their cost and be more effective? Probably. Now they're a dinosaur. They became a dinosaur in 1 quarter. So things are moving very fast. So how do you move fast, right? And transforming your product and transforming your businesses. First, there's already people who have done this. So that's the shortest route. If my objective is speed, hire people who have done it before, right? Have the experience such as Neoteric. It'll shorten that life cycle. You're evaluating every piece of the stack. You have an architecture out of the box ready to go. So that's one. Two, it's really about, listen to this recording. All these issues, trust, data security, privacy, data isolation, we touched on today. There is a best-in-class solution for IP infringement. All these things that were topics of today, there is a best possible solution that gets you to market. And the people who are not analysis paralysis are like, you know what? I'm going to figure out best possible and I'm going to move fast, are getting to market. And, I probably sound a little extreme, probably, but I lived the internet era and I saw that happen in that. So this is history repeating itself. But I'll tell you what's different. In that time, I remember going to meetings. We spent a whole week discussing how the internet was important. I think it was at a pharmaceutical conference. Like, is the internet important for the pharmaceutical industry? We spent a whole week with McKinsey consultants, right? We had the luxury of time back then. It's not it's not happening this time. It's just moving at a pace that is at a speed and maybe because we've seen this before, everybody knows to move faster, and it could be building on previous experience. I don't know, but it's certainly moving at a speed that I haven't seen other tech invention come about. Not the internet, not social media, not the mobile revolution. This certainly feels different.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure.
At the same time, right? Like, it's like one of those things, like, what an exciting time to be alive, that I experienced in my lifetime. This technology revolution that is going to be so impactful is great. And internet has still 30 years later is still transforming businesses, and new business models are created. So I don't think it's going to go away, and I don't think there's a window, but it's certainly, like, if you don't get on that path, you can be like this company that I mentioned in 1 quarter, effectively, imploding.
Mm-hmm. No, I think, definitely you hit the point there in terms of, having to move fast and having to be ready to move fast as well. And that the technology, it's almost moving faster than anything else up to now, like the world is speeding up. And I guess this is one of the examples of it. And I guess, this sort of fits in with my kind of final point. So I think this more goes out to our listeners that, if any of the guys listening to us today already have an idea, but don't know where to start in terms of, implementation, let's say, because any of the above challenges are sort of keeping them awake at night or anything else, to be fair. We as Neoteric, what we do offer is sort of a generative AI exploratory workshop where you have a chance to sit down with our product team and AI team to really kind of shape up the idea and kind of come up with a blueprint for the implementation, and really see how, with our expertise and kind of your ideas and your data and so on, we could sort of bring this to life as well. So we do offer that service. And I guess the good news for anyone sort of still listening, because I know we overrun, so as a reward for 5 minutes of your extra time, what we are doing is that for all the participants of this webinar, we'll be sort of offering these workshops sessions entirely for free. So to reach out to us, and if you guys do want to have a conversation around how you can sort of utilize generative AI, give me a shout, or anyone from our company, and we'll be very happy to help out. And Otavio is a testament to what we've done. So we do have a question. So how do you see AI working in gaming? And I think there was a follow-up, or the gambling industry. So do you guys want to sort of answer that question? What do you guys think? Do you see space for generative AI in those industries?
Oh yeah, no, I think from the the visual layout, all the design and the art, starting at that point, the actual storytelling, what's the storyline of the games. I'm already seen it. A customer came to us in that industry as well. They feel like every part of the production of the game can be positively impacted by generative AI. Even in the engine itself, right? And even how it reasons and how it makes decisions and what the characters say back to each other when you interface with the other game, the characters in the game. So a lot of areas to explore. Like so many actually have to start somewhere, right? And they're talking about full generative AI games where the AI produces a game that's about to happen too. They can start with a prompt design. Give me a game where ... and the whole thing. So I mean, and Unity engine is incorporating generative AI too. So there's a lot happening there. So certainly a lot to explore in gaming. I haven't explored gambling, which I think was the other question, but I haven't explored it, but I suspect there should be opportunities. But
yeah, I think, and a lot of what the sort of projects we're getting on our end, a lot of it is around, creating a chatbot, let's say, that sounds much more human because it's based on sort of previous conversations. I think that almost has implications to gaming in terms of what Otavio said. So, making the conversations you have within a game feel, more natural, basically. The fact you can have more dialogue options, you can, type out your dialogue and you will get a customized answer back and things like that. So, no, definitely see it within the gaming industry. So yeah, Maritza, anything to add here, or?
Nothing to add, I think.
Fair enough. So I think we have one more question from Philip. So is there still need for data collection labeling for SMEs since the weight of the model development shifts to bigger companies?
I would contend you create a differentiated product if you bring your own tag data. So yes, in short, do you have to? No, but depending on your use case, it will create something that cannot be replicated and will be better than just using the LLM. So I would certainly recommend that if you have the ability to invest in that area.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. I feel like if you're not collecting your own data and labeling it, you're giving huge power to the companies that are making those decisions for you. And in the absence of sort of the transparency that I was talking about earlier, right now I feel, what can we really say about it? And so depending on who will be using the model and what are they using it for, I think there's a lot of space for maintaining that level of control.
Fair enough. So I think it's time to wrap up, guys. So thank you for joining me today for this chat. It's been super interesting, and it was great chatting to you guys and sort of hearing your take on this generative AI revolution. So thank you for joining, and thanks to our audience for joining us today as well. So hopefully we sort of uncovered a few things for you. So thank you very much, and hopefully there's more to come. So best of luck in your endeavors.
Thank you for having me, Michael. Appreciate it.
Thank you.